Hello everyone, this is Nachirutimana Peter. Welcome to this channel. If you did not subscribe, you can remember to subscribe for more stories, more beautiful stories are coming soon. If you did not subscribe, you can remember to subscribe. Thank you so much. Today I'm bringing you a beautiful story that is Meja Mwangi's CARCASE for Hounds. You can listen to this story. We can start with the relevance of the title. A carcass is a body of a dead animal, whereas a hound is a type of dog that is often used for hunting or racing. The title is used symbolically. Kenya is considered in the story as the main carcass being hounded by the colonialists. Like hounds upon their prey, the colonialists are fierce. They can do anything to protect their carcass. General Haraka is the other single carcass being hounded by Kingsley and his men. Kingsley is being hunted by Brigadier Thames for failure to kill General Haraka. Human beings have been reduced to the status of animals, thus the several deaths and bodies could be referred to as a carcass. Human killings have become as simple as they are seen occurring in the story. On the whole, however, everyone is being hunted. The chief's hound the villagers upon suspecting them to be supporters of the Mau Mau fighters, as well as few of their innocent personal enemies. The setting is in Kenya during the colonial era. It depicts the famous armed struggle for independence, Mau Mau rebellion, not as a means of retelling the story but rather dramatizing the atrocities committed by the perpetrators of the violence. Central characters: Maguru Nyaga, General Haraka. He is the former chief who decides to wage war against the colonial government, a genius, charismatic and patriotic labor leader who vows to fight to last man. He is brave, courageous, determined to challenge the British colonial government in Kenya when he is well aware of its military might. His swift movements and quick precision clearly marks him as a genius of a soldier. He is nicknamed Haraka because of his movements. He is irrepressible. Captain Kingsley. He is a former district commissioner and now in charge of Operation Haraka. He is easily derailed by streams of emotions, especially by his tormentor, Brigadier Thames, his commanding officer, CO. However, he is an obedient army officer and a gentleman at heart. He obeys his superiors' orders with calmness and he has got a passion for his job. Chief Kahuru Wamai Simba, General Haraka's childhood friend and now his arch rival. He is a government stooge and determined to expose any terrorist sympathizers plus a few of his personal enemies. A clone of some sort and fanatical loyalist who obeys government orders without questioning, a coward whose survival depends on his ruthlessness and liquidation of enemies. Central themes: the story is a fiction of the history of Kenya's armed struggle for independence from Great Britain. It explores the theme of mourning and melancholy. Haraka's favored lovings bear witness to traumatized histories. It depicts Haraka as a representative of the people. A bullet wound in his gut compels him to repeatedly call for the traitorous chief's severed head. Haraka challenges the colonial hierarchies through his calls for the head. Violence wrought by both colonial administration and their African supporters. His wound in the gut is a symbol of the wounds wrought by the colonialists and their African supporters. They are not merely material phenomena but rather septic wounds, testimonial of a collective transgenerational traumatic history. It illuminates the politics of articulation of traumatized collective past, present, the future. By the end of the narrative, the chief's head, symbolic of independence, has proved impossible to secure. Plot overview. The weather is bad and rivers have burst their banks. General Halake and his men have acquired uniforms and arms by killing policemen and white farmers. They are too cautious about their safety and stock the guerrilla style, quite familiar with their habitat. Government soldiers are all over the place. General Halaka detests the mention of Captain Kingsley and wishes he had killed him when he had the chance. More military presence is in the capital. There is heavy fighting and arrest of organizers. Captain Kingsley is practically disturbed by rather a tough expedition amidst cloud weather conditions. Meanwhile, the military is beefing up and an option of aerial attack might be considered. The Emergency Council (EC) believes that Captain Kingsley is taking too long on assignment. The CO Brigadier Thames, in a telephone conversation with Captain Kingsley, is very critical of his success. Besides, the EC has recommended his immediate replacement. The captain is disappointed at the EC's ingratitude and failure to appreciate the obstinate nature of General Haraka, but he's given the last chance, probably as means to scare hard work of him. The general's mind wanders to the remote past when, as children, he first met Chief Simba, when their parents, working as 3 men under Gunner Jackson, forest officer. As young men, they had self-appointed themselves gang leaders, and that's how they later became chiefs. They were sort of gangsters or child criminals who stole and raped village maidens. Maguru, now General Haraka, became the first chief of Pinewood Forest Station. As a protest against land grabbing, he had fled with other fighters to wage war. He has become drunk of the spirit of fighting for freedom sparked by the incident in which he strikes the DC into a state of unconsciousness. Kahuru Wamai, now Chief Simba, remains loyal to the white man and exposes every single terrorist collaborator as well as few of his innocent personal enemies. Caracas' campaign attracts a lot of support, not only from the capital but also from the countryside, despite the DC's reprisals in the village, arrest and detention of Haraka's followers and families. General Haraki is a swift in nature, just as his name suggests. He commands respect and fear alike among his men. Kimamo, his lieutenant, on the other hand, is hard, brave, commanding eye, yet understanding. Everyone would shrink in their tracks by a mere mention of General Haraka, for his mothers are too grim to be taken lightly. Kingsley visits a rather vulnerable Pinewood Forest Station. The office is closed and the chief in deep afternoon siesta. A villager, Waru, Jackson's cook, has been murdered by surprisingly the chief's report does not features any Mau Mau attack in the village. One Jackson's, the forest officer of Pinewood, is not bothered, for the villagers could rot for all he cares as long as they turn up to tend his trees. The life of the police is more ceremonial than practical. The young inspector, who comes almost instantly, is quite humane, friendly, and duty-bound, unlike the hardcore settlers who believe that a good African is a dead one. He believes that the rest of a Mau Mau is more valuable alive than a dead one. Like a film star, General Halaka and his men attack and burst into the armory of Oi Pajeta police post and loot an assortment of arms and ammunitions. The ex-chief's power, prowess, and swiftness with which he executes the operation is fascinating. Captain Kingsley's men arrive amidst a pelting storm weather too late and mount a vain chase. Yet another police post miles away at Timau is under attack. Confusion sets in as to whether it is Haraka doing havoc on 2 police posts almost simultaneously in a range of 59 miles. Meanwhile, more contingents have arrived from England. On the contrary, Captain Kingsley believes that this regiment could have handled single-handedly, but now a whole British army is being brought to chase after a bastard of a killer and his cutthroats. The whole spectacle puzzled ex-DC. A sea of amnesty leaflets have been airdropped. Unbothered by the amnesty leaflets, the general is delighted over the arms booty. However, the news of heavy losses and surrenders on the Abardares neutralized the merry glitter the general had won. Kinambo is perplexed over the amnesty leaflets, this time around because they bear the general's picture. But the general's stance remains too strong. Ironically, Kimono's fears come at a time when they have acquired more arms and ammunition. However, there is a fear that the villagers have been contaminated by defects of the amnesty leaflets. According to the general, amnesty is the devil's bargain. Lost land, spilt blood, the white man's oppression, and freedom of the black man in his country are more important. At night, the general pays a visit at Old Mwiniki, Old Nyaga, Haraka's father, and Old Wamai chief. Kahuru's father had, as strangers, come to work for Bwana Jackson in order to earn an education for their children, but they had been turned into a bunch of paid slaves. Captain Kingsley has not only one enemy to fight but also the effect of bad weather. The rain has already hampered his success. His convoy has been stuck in a muddy road near Pinewood Forest Station. Corporal Njoro, who is more concerned with getting a sergeant chevron than performing his duty as a home guard on patrol, has come to the chief's hut to report the presence of the tourists in Mnginiki's hut. Chief Kahuru quickly assembles his home guards, and a formidable fight ensues in which General Haraka is seriously injured by a stray bullet. Owing to the fierce fight that ensues between Chief Kahuru's home guards and Haraka's men, Old Mwiniki is killed. The chief is not sure, but he has feeling that his own bullets have felled guilty people. He had destroyed the hut to make sure of getting his father-in-law out of the way. Is this all he could pay in dowry? Conflict knows no bounds. Captain Kingsley decides to pitch camp at Pinewood Forest Station in a bid to launch his final onslaught on General Haraka. Everything is changing. The weather that has always been his reliable and unquestioning ally has started letting him down. Chief Kahuru, too, is changing now. He could challenge him. He who a few years back had run into his mother's skirts at a mere threat of a fight could now challenge Haraka. A man who could not face a woman had become a chief, and Haraka a forest fighter and outlaw. The reminiscence of a proud DC lying unconsciously at his feet makes him feel confident and invincible despite his current state. But why couldn't his allies, the ones upon whom he had personally administered oaths, bring him guns and more men and help him ward off the vultures? A feeling of loneliness chills its way into him. He has been swindled and thrown to the hounds. He feels cheated and fooled. He is now a wounded and trapped beast. However, he believes that it's just time to rid Pinewood Village of the malignant and desirable road Chief Kahuru. The pangs of the hatred and revenge are more than the physical pain in his side. Wit and his customary swiftness have all deserted him. Kimamo, his lieutenant, has realized that he can no longer rely on him for decision-making but fears insubordination. In sort of a dream, the injured general is haunted by his strong desire to kill Chief Kahuru, his enemy. His state of disillusionment becomes obvious while his troops prepare to evacuate. The general collapses. His wound bullet has worsened but they can't leave him behind. However, Kimamo seems not physiologically prepared to take over command. Chief Kahuru's sole reason for showing up for Sunday prayers for the very first time since his baptism is something to do with his personal life. The recent raid on his post, a raid that cost him 5 of his home guards and his most efficient, posthumously promoted Sergeant Joro, was his display on the fateful night a sign of bravery? One might think it was merely survival instinct. Haraka's body is dead, but his spirit refuses to let go, and this haunts his men. His mad demands for the chief's head plus his convulsive groans. His death is quite obvious, but then what? Fear and frustration has gripped his camp. Some of his men have died in action, and others defected or deserted. The magnet that has always drawn them back to the cave and kept them in the gang has rotten in the general's side. Kimamo believes that the only price he can afford his dying general is the chief's head. Unfortunately, his failure to take the chief Kahulu's life costs him in his own. Thank you for listening to me. If you need to know more, you can look for the book. It is CARCASE for Hounds. That is written by Meja Mwangi. Thank you so much. If you did not subscribe, you can remember to subscribe for more stories. Thank you so much.